You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Today, I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory.
But if I wanted to ruin society and get it to a point where everybody, you needed to control things because it got so chaotic that you could institute some sort of a digital ID and institute social credits, what I would do is I would just let people out of jail the moment they do anything, let them camp on the streets, give them money for drugs, just let it go crazy.
Walk into a room expecting a simple, easygoing chat, and then Joe Rogan zeroes in on Keir Starmer, instantly changing the entire energy. It doesn't begin with shouting or spectacle, but the impact is undeniable. Thoughts start spinning, composure slips, and the kind of moment people later call iconic unfold right in front of you. Subtle revelations emerge, silences stretch, and each second feels like the brink of a podcast turning point. Just when you think you understand where it's heading, it pivots again. Brace yourself because what follows is intense, unexpected, and completely unscripted.
A false rumour. There's absolutely nothing in it, no plans to do it, nor ever would there be.
You obviously say you're not going to do it, but how can you be sure that future governments wouldn't use this system to create like a social scoring system that they have in China?
Because this law will have to be set out in primary legislation.
And then have everybody like scrambling, please take away our freedom to give us safety.
Yeah.
And then boom.
Well, you can't blame people for asking these kinds of questions when you go to other countries and it's safe to walk around at night, and it's a pretty clean city. It's like, what?
Still think politics is boring. Keir Starmer definitely didn't get that message. The moment Joe Rogan starts digging in, it's like someone slammed fast forward on a routine that's half comedy, half confrontation. Starmer arrives with his familiar mix of polite British restraint and steady confidence, the kind that suggests everything is under control. Across from him, Rogan leans in like a verbal battering ram, picking apart every carefully crafted line, prying open polished answers, and spotlighting the spaces in between with relentless focus.
Particularly when you think about the UK, which has had more than 12,000 arrests. They're being arrested for wild things. People are being arrested for liking posts. 12,000 people arrested by the police in the UK, the same place that just implemented digital ID. I mean, this is an Orwell nightmare coming to life right in.
If you're enjoying the video, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what's next. It begins calmly enough. Joe leans back, nodding, a mild layer of skepticism settling over the room while Starmer assumes the questions are routine. Simple prompts like, how would you handle this? Then the ground shifts. Suddenly he's over-explaining policies no one even mentioned, his tone sliding into that strained mix of urgency and denial, like someone insisting this is all spontaneous while sounding anything but. At moments he seems completely overwhelmed, caught in a storm of his own talking points. What unfolds feels less like a casual interview and more like a pointed test of a core democratic idea, the freedom to question authority and openly challenge decisions people believe are harmful. Starmer tries to maintain his image as the calm, composed face of careful British politics, yet Rogan never needs to raise his voice. The pressure comes from the silences, the steady stare, the subtle pauses that make every response feel heavier. The contrast is almost surreal, Rogan relaxed and unhurried, like he's in a laid-back conversation, while Starmer appears tense, scrambling to defend positions most viewers weren't even focused on until that moment.
Fascinating, and the fact that our mainstream media is relatively silent on this is insane. You're seeing a complete, total attack on one of the most fundamental principles of the Western world, which is your ability to express yourself and your ability to call out that you think that the policies that are being implemented in your country.
It's not only what Rogan asks, but the way he asks it. His tone carries real curiosity, layered with just enough skepticism to tighten the atmosphere, like someone who already sees the destination but enjoys watching the long route unfold. Starmer sticks to his trademark calm and composure, yet each polished answer runs straight into Rogan's relaxed follow-ups, softly delivered questions like, really, or can you walk me through that again, that land harder than any shout. The contrast borders on awkward humor. You can almost imagine Starmer thinking, I rehearsed this perfectly, just as Rogan casually drops another precise challenge. By the end, Starmer seems less like a confident statesman and more like a guest who wandered into the wrong gathering and can't find the door. The body language tells the story, Starmer upright and formal, while every lean, pause, or raised eyebrow from Rogan nudges him further off balance, revealing the tension he's trying so hard to hide.
Identify you somehow, some sort of an identification through your eyes, through blood, through facial recognition, a combination of all three, and then that is going to allow you to access whatever it is, information online, credit cards, all the rest of it, of course. But what it's really doing is allowing something, whether it's the government or big tech, more control over you, because eventually you're going to go in and, okay, to make sure this is you paying for, let's say, a steak. And now all of a sudden, oh, you've had your allotment of steak because of the environment, because of how many cows. And
on a podcast, those micro moments don't stay small, they echo. A half-second pause, a sideways glance, a quiet from Rogan suddenly feels louder than any speech in Parliament. You can almost see the rulebook of political composure flipping apart page by page while Rogan just sits there, steering the tone without looking like he's steering at all. And here's the real curveball. On paper, Starmer's ideas aren't wild or reckless. In a policy briefing, they sound structured, rational, even thoughtful. The kind of plans that make sense when you've got charts, timelines, and a 40-page document to lean on. But Rogan's audience isn't reading white papers over coffee. They want clarity in real time. If an idea can't survive in plain, everyday language, it starts to sound like evasion, even when it isn't. So every time Starmer tries to sound measured and responsible, it lands as overcomplicated. Careful turns into cautious. Detailed turns into rambling. Meanwhile, Rogan keeps things simple, almost disarmingly so, tossing out short follow-ups that act like loose threads. And the more Starmer pulls to explain, the more the whole thing seems to unravel. Still, he pushes on. Nods. Half agrees. Tries to reframe. You can see the effort to stay steady, to project control. But by the halfway mark, those neatly rehearsed talking points start wobbling. It's like watching someone try to keep their footing on a platform that won't stop shifting, every calm, conversational nudge from Rogan subtly moving the ground just enough to throw off the balance again. And that's what makes it gripping. Not shouting. Not chaos. Just a slow, visible tilt in momentum, where one person is having a conversation, and the other is slowly realizing it's turned into a task they didn't prepare for.
Been able to do that. These people are not calling for violence. They're being arrested for wild things. People are being arrested for liking posts. They're being some people were investigated for viewing
those moments. Not because they're explosive, but because they're painfully human. The freeze. The forced half smile. The blink that lingers a second too long. In the age of short-form video, that's all it takes. A 2-second hesitation becomes a looping clip seen by millions, stripped of context and reborn as entertainment. That's where the real imbalance shows up. Rogan isn't debating like a politician or interrogating like a journalist. He's reacting like a regular person trying to make sense of something that sounds overly polished. And when Starmer answers in careful, layered language, it clashes hard with that setting. It's like bringing a committee report to a campfire conversation. The internet does the rest. Edits tighten the pauses. Zooms hit at just the right awkward beat. Music turns hesitation into drama. Suddenly it's not a policy discussion, it's a vibe. And the vibe says one guy looks comfortable and curious, while the other looks like he's mentally flipping through flashcards that just blew away in the wind. What makes it brutal is that nothing technically goes wrong. No shouting match. No big gotcha. Just a steady drip of moments where the answers feel heavier than the questions. Rogan tilts his head, waits half a beat longer than normal, and lets silence do the work. In a studio built for long-form conversation, silence hits harder than any attack line. And when Starmer tries to regain footing, clarifying, expanding, tightening his phrasing, it can land like overcorrection. The more structured he sounds, the more out of place it feels next to Rogan's loose, conversational rhythm. Viewers don't analyze why. They just feel the contrast. By the end, the exchange doesn't look like a clash of ideas. It looks like a clash of communication styles, institutional politics versus informal, podcast-era skepticism. One speaks in frameworks. The other speaks in instincts. And online, instincts spread faster. That's why people keep replaying it. Not to rewatch policy points, but to relive the subtle shift in control, the tiny social cues, the moment the room's energy quietly changes hands without anyone ever raising their voice.
It's a digital ID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these motherfuckers are pushing digital ID on these people. And once they do digital ID, they're going to attach it to a social credit score.
Yep.
They're going to attach it to a carbon footprint score. And then they'll be able to control your movement and control you entirely. And most importantly, they've already arrested 12,000 people for social media.
By the time Starmer finishes speaking, the audience is suspended somewhere between confusion and amusement, but completely locked in. Everyone can sense it. He's trying to regain control of a conversation that's already slipped into Rogan's rhythm. Then come the subtle power plays. Rogan casually drifts into something that sounds unrelated: hunting, martial arts, some offbeat philosophical tangent, and somehow Starmer feels compelled to wrestle it back toward policy, toward Brexit, toward something structured and familiar. You can almost see the mental gears grinding as he searches for a bridge that isn't really there. The effort is impressive. The landing, not always. Rogan doesn't interrupt. Doesn't gloat. Doesn't lean in for the kill. He just gives a small smile, takes a sip of water, and lets the silence hang half a second longer than comfortable. And that silence says more than an argument ever could. At that point, it's no longer a discussion, it's a spectacle of contrast. One man operating on instinct and curiosity. The other trying to maintain the posture and precision of political discipline in a setting that doesn't reward it. Starmer's composure and dignity don't disappear, they just get buried under the weight of a format he can't quite bend to his advantage. And in the internet age, that's all it takes. A few clipped pauses. A handful of awkward transitions. A moment of hesitation turned into a looping meme. Years of carefully managed public image can unravel faster in a 3-hour podcast than in decades on the parliamentary benches.